These forced birther states are not good for anyone's health. Making women have these babies, restricting women, trying to push these physicians out is doing nothing but harming folks. The infant mortality rate rose following Texas abortion ban, study shows. In the wake of Texas abortion ban, the state's infant death rate increased and more died of birth defects, a study published Monday shows. The analysis out of Johns Hopkins University is the latest research to find higher infant mortality rates in states with these strict restrictions. The researchers looked at how many infants died before their first birthday after Texas adopted its ban in September 2021. They compared the deaths in Texas to those in 28 states, some also with restrictions. The researchers calculated that there were 216 more deaths in Texas than expected between March and December the next year. In Texas, the 2022 mortality rate for infants went up 8% to 5.75 per 1,000 births, compared to a 2% increase in the rest of the United States, according to the study in the journal JAMA Pediatrics. Among causes of deaths, birth defects show a 23% increase compared to a decrease of about 3% in the rest of the United States. The Texas law blocks abortion after the detection of cardiac activity, usually 5 or 6 weeks into pregnancy, well before tests are done to detect fetal abnormalities. I think these findings make clear the potentially devastating consequences that these bans can have, says co-author Susan Bell, a fertility researcher. Doctors have argued that the law is too restrictive toward women who face pregnancy complications, though the state's Supreme Court last month rejected a case that sought to weaken it. Infant deaths are relatively rare, Bell said, so the team was a bit surprised by the findings. Because of the small numbers, the researchers could not parse out the rates for different populations. For example, to see if rates were rising more for certain races or socioeconomic groups. But the results did not come as a surprise to Tiffany Green, a University of Wisconsin-Madison economist and population health scientist who studies the consequences of racial inequities on reproductive health. She said the results were in line with earlier research on racial disparities in infant mortality rates due to state differences in Medicaid funding for abortions. Many of the people getting them are vulnerable to pregnancy complications, said Green, who was not part of the research. So some of the people that would be getting them are doing so because they have detected some issues with the fetus. Stephen Chasson, a maternal fetal medicine specialist with Weill Cornell Medicine, says abortion restrictions have other consequences. Chasen, who had no role in the research, said people who carry out pregnancies with fetal anomalies need extra support, education, and specialized medical care for the mother and newborn, all of which require resources. And the way that these GOPers, these Christo-fascists, these forced birthers are, they continue to cut safety nets. They continue to cut things that would help these mothers who are carrying these babies to term. And when they are carrying them to term and they end up with abnormalities or disabilities, these mothers are typically left high and dry. And so this is going to become a mess. This is going to lead to a society that is going to be poor, more in poverty. Women will be more jacked up because of how we cannot access this. It's going to cause more harm as far as women's reproductive organs and all of that. So we're going to have to continue to watch this and watch these numbers. And that leads me directly to this article. New Mexico governor says 2 years after Roe was overturned that there are more abortions happening because more women are at risk. And more women are traveling to states that are like sanctuary states where women still have reproductive rights. So this is going to be interesting to watch as well. New Mexico Governor Michelle Grisham said Sunday that 2 years after the Supreme Court overturned Roe, there are more abortions happening because more women are at risk. You create a draconian situation, you're going to increase risk at every single place, Grisham said Sunday on Face the Nation. She said that in the new patchwork of access in states, Many women struggle to find a provider, leading to less access to contraception and less overall information about public health. 2 years ago this week, the Supreme Court overturned Roe, allowing states to dramatically restrict access to the procedure. Now, near total bans are in place in nearly a third of states, along with severe restrictions in others. But between 2020 and 2023, abortions that occurred in the formal healthcare system rose 11%, according to the Guttmacher Institute, a pro choice rights research group. Those figures represented the highest number and rate of abortions in more than a decade. So they are not going to be able to make women have these babies if they do not want them. The change illustrates how, despite the ban, states where abortions remain available have seen significant increases in the procedure, especially states that border ones with the most dramatic restrictions, like New Mexico, which is among 4 states with the sharpest increases since Roe was overturned. So, where these states are extra restrictive, women are still getting the procedures that they need. I know that there are different organizations that are helping women get the reproductive care that they need. They're not going to be able to stop women as of right now. New Mexico has no gestational limits on access, and the governor has taken actions in recent years to further protect access by making the state a safe haven for providers and patients from neighboring states like Texas and Oklahoma. This is a state that's clear about protecting women and creating equality. So some is going to create a push. And I keep talking about the pink exodus that will happen, where women and girls will leave these states or choose not to go to these states for opportunities like going to college or to work in these states. So it's going to be bad. The birth rate will continue to decline. Right now, we're still watching these numbers and the impact of overturning Roe. So the birth rate is declining in this country. So we're going to see what happens as these Christo fascists continue to attempt to have a theocracy or the handmaid's tale. Will Project 2025 come to fruition? We shall see. All of these numbers are very telling, but the only numbers that really matter will be these election numbers come November. But for right now, weigh in your thoughts on what is happening with reproductive rights and how these forced birther states are causing harm to babies, they're causing harm to women, and they're pushing these positions out. So let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. So I literally just discovered the NEET subreddit, the Not in Employment, Education, or Training subreddit. It looks like Fortune is talking about them. It says Gen Zers are increasingly becoming NEETs by choice. Let's get into this article. So this was in Fortune and reposted in the Yahoo Finance page. It says, just like Peter Pan, there's a growing cohort of Gen Zers who are refusing to grow up and embrace life's major milestones to adulthood, like getting some form of qualification or joining the world of work. Instead, they're opting to become NEETs, not in employment, education, or training, and creating record levels of youth unemployment around the world. According to the International Labor Organization, about a fifth of people between 15 and 24 worldwide in 2023 are currently NEETs. In Spain alone, over 500,000 15 to 24-year-olds are neither studying nor working. Meanwhile, in the UK, almost 3 million Gen Zers are now classed as economically inactive, with 384,000 youngsters joining the workless class since the COVID pandemic. The studies don't delve into what's inspiring young people to ditch the rat race and opt for a life under their parents' roof or on public subsidies, but separate research highlights that even if they did start climbing the corporate ladder, buying a home of their own still feels like an impossible task. Adult milestones are seemingly out of reach anyway. Reams of research shows that those in their early 20s are earning less, they have more debt, and see higher delinquency rates than millennials did at their age. Credit reporting agency TransUnion found that 20 somethings today are taking home around 45,500, while millennials at their age were earning close to 52,000 when adjusted for inflation. Despite earning less, young people today are being forced to dig deep for basic necessities like food, groceries, and gas, thanks to inflation or greedflation. Meanwhile, house prices have increased more than twice as fast as income has since the turn of the millennium. This divergence goes a long way in explaining why young people may feel like saving or even working towards the future is futile. That is going to be very challenging for the economy and the future of this country if people are so down on the economy that they don't even try. All right. As one Gen Zer noted in Fortune, I'm just focusing on the present because the future is depressing. Hustling is so last season. Hustling, girl bossing, or work hard, play harder just doesn't quite have the same grip on Gen Z as it did on millennials starting out. Many young people today would rather protect their well being than compete their way up the corporate ladder, only to not be able to afford the McMansion their parents bought for a fraction of the price. Even those who do want to work don't want a career. Instead, many Gen Zers are eyeing up easygoing jobs that don't require regular overtime, antisocial working hours, or substantial responsibilities like managing a large team. Others are avoiding office jobs. The hottest roles right now among Gen Z grads are in teaching, where low pay is balanced with weeks of vacation. Meanwhile, non grad Gen Zers are picking up the tools and taking up trade jobs in record numbers. Mental health struggles. At the same time as unemployment among the youth is rising, their mental health is in decline. Gen Z are nearly twice as stressed out as millennials were at their age. More than a third of 18 to 24-year-olds are suffering from a common mental disorder, CMD, like stress, anxiety, or depression. And Gen Zers who are working are taking significantly more sick leave than Gen Xers 20 years their senior. Youth worklessness due to ill health is a real and growing trend. It is worrying that young people in their early 20s, just embarking on their adult life, are more likely to be out of work due to ill health than those in their 40s. Researchers at the think tank Resolution Foundation, RF, recently told Fortune, really, is it any surprise that those struggling mentally would avoid joining the world of work when more than half of the CEOs even admit that their company's culture is toxic? I have no idea what it is going to take for society to make this shift. Number one, we all know that these prices are out of reach. Even if a person was working 40 hours, 45 hours, 50 hours, many of the things that are staples for survival are still out of reach for many people. And these young people are simply just unwilling to try because they know they're going to fail because prices are not even slightly connecting to the wages. We're going to see how this works out with relationships. The marriage rates are already in decline. The birth rates are already in decline. We're going to probably see more and more people opt out because they have given up. If they're not doing the major milestones like getting a job, obviously they're not going to do the milestones like having some babies, even though, yes, they might have, they might hunch a little bit, but do they really want kids? Who knows? I have no idea. Like, why would they want kids if they know that they don't even want to work? This is going to be interesting to watch. The NEET subreddit is on I'm watching that. But you guys go ahead and let me know what you think of this. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.